Hello there, my name is Thomas O'Regan and I'm a property investor here in Australia. Over the last 3.5 years, me and my wife have built an 11 property portfolio, and now what we're doing with this property portfolio, which is predominantly resi, we're transitioning it into commercial. And as such, I've been doing a lot of research on commercial properties, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight on the indicators that will tell me whether I'm purchasing a property and it has good value in it. Now, the cool thing about commercial property is a lot of the time, if you're buying commercial property that is high value commercial property, and even some that are low valued, you can even find good deals 500k, but generally the best deals are once you are at the $4 million plus mark. But what you want to look out for when you're buying a commercial property in general is, what am I paying? What is the asking price, or what is the price of this property opposed to the square meterage rate of land? So the way you do this is you get the total price of the property and then you divide it by how much square meters of land there is. For example, if a property is 1,000 square meters and the property is selling for $1 million, then you would effectively be paying for this property $1,000 per square meter. Now you really want to know that number, because the closer you can get that number to the actual land value, if the property has like a building on it that's lettable and you can rent it out, like that is an extremely good buy. You're buying at value. And that's the numbers that you really want to make sure you understand when you're buying commercial property. There's another number. It's what is this property worth in terms of how much the building is. So say for example, if that same property, that 1,000 square meter property had a building component on it, and the building component on it was a single level of $500,000, and they were still selling it for $1 million, which would be a really ridiculously good deal. But just for this example, so we're keeping it simple, it was a 500 square meter building, single level, and they were still selling that building for $1 million, then you would be paying $2,000 per square meter for the building. This number is also very important when it comes to commercial property, because you really need to understand, what is it actually going to cost if I was to replace this building? Okay, and it's going to lead into another question we'll be asking, or we'll look into when we're researching buying commercial property. So for example, if we're buying this building, this property that has this 500 square meter building on it, and we're buying it for $2,000 a square meter, but today if you were to build the same thing, it would cost $5,000 a square meter. That is a really good deal, because it means no development around you can outprice you. The only thing that a development around you would do is bring up the actual value of your property, because everyone would start asking themselves, why am I paying for these new developed buildings that the builders spent money on? It's cost him $5,000 a square meter, and then they've charged me a premium on it because it's a newly built property, and now I'm paying $7,000 a square meter for this newly built property. Why would I buy that when I can just buy this other property that is on 1,000 square meter lot, that's a 500 square meter building, and the building cost is only $2,000 per square meter? All I would have to do if I bought this building was just do a little bit of a renovation, maybe spend an extra $1,000 a square meter, renovate it up to a very high standard, and I would still be paying less money than if I bought one of those new developed properties right next door for $7,000 a square meter. Okay, so obviously, if you're buying a commercial property as an investor, you want to let out the space. You want to rent the space. So another number that is important for you to know is, what is this space going to let out for per square meter? So for example, you might have this one that we're talking about already. It's a 500 square meter building. They're selling it for $1 million, and it lets out per square meter. It lets out for say $100 per square meter of building, and that's just the market rate that people are willing to spend in the area to lease a property. $100 per square meter per year, meaning they would be willing to pay $50,000 for to let out this building per year. That's a very important number you need to know, because why? Because it determines the value of the property, it determines the price, and it determines the return you're going to get on the property. Say in this example, if you had a building that you bought for $1 million and it let out for $50,000, that's a 5%, assuming it's a net return. That's 5,000. Sorry, what am I saying? It's a 5% return. And that's not a 5% return on capital. Depends on how much money you put into the deal, but that's just a 5% yielding on the actual value of the property. Now, those are the three most important things you need to understand when it comes to buying commercial properties. And again, they are: what is the square meterage rate when you're buying per for land value, what is the square meterage rate for building value, and what is the yield, what is the return on this property, how much is it let out per square meter in terms of rental space. Those are the three most important things you will need to know when it comes to purchasing investment property that is a commercial property. Hopefully this helps. Good luck in your commercial property investment journey, guys. See you later. Bye.